Tamron is the budget option for us camera interested people that can't afford the top end lenses, the G-Master lenses from Sony. But budget doesn't always mean bad quality. Is this ultra wide angle zoom lens, the 17-28 f2.8 Tamron lens, a sleeper lens that needs more recognition? This is the Tamron 17-28 f2.8 Di3 RXD. Sounds fancy, I know, but what does all these letters actually mean? Lens abbreviations are necessary. As so many lenses has so many features, it would be impossible to write down all the features on the lens. And also, having abbreviations means you don't have to go through the lens manual to know what the lens has to offer you. So here's a walkthrough on the abbreviations on this lens. DI means that it's digital integrated. That only means that it's optimized for digital cameras, like all cameras nowadays. But you have different levels of the DI. You have DI2, that means that it's optimized for or made for APS-C or crop sensor cameras like the Sony A6000 series of cameras. Then you have DI3, that this 17-28 is marked as. That means that it's made for mirrorless cameras like the Sony A7IV that I'm filming on right now and my Sony A7S3, and not older DSLR cameras. Then you have RXD. RXD stands for Tamron's new rapid extra silent stepping drive autofocus motor. That only means that it's silent. That's the most silent autofocusing system that Tamron has to offer. The lens is really good for video because the autofocus is silent, so the camera won't pick up when the lens is shifting focus. Now, the lens over all ultra wide angle zoom lenses is the Sony G-Master 16-35mm f2.8. But that lens costs $2,200, and that's a lot of money for a lot of people. Not everybody can afford that lens. It's probably more money than a lot of people make in a whole month. But Sony just released the 16-35mm f4, or announced the 16-35mm f4. I think it's going to get released in July of this year, and that is $1,200. So it's $1,000 cheaper than the G-Master lens is. But $1,200, that's also a lot of money for a lot of people. And this Tamron 17-28, it only comes in at $799. And having a $799 option, which is an f2.8, I might say, compared to the new f4, $799, it is more appealing when you look at the quality you get from this lens. It doesn't have all the features that the other lenses do, but come on, it's $799. So let's quickly talk about the specs of this lens. This is a budget lens, so they had to do something to get the cost down. Therefore, this lens is made out of plastic. There are no buttons on the lens. There are no autofocus to manual focus button. There's no lock switch. There is no image stabilization or optical steady shot or vibration compensation that Tamron uses. There's no image stabilization inside of the lens. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. There's only the zoom ring and the focus ring. But the aesthetics of the lens, it looks like the other Tamron lenses. The Tamron lenses, they look the same, so it has the same feel, and the quality of the plastic is not bad. But having no buttons on the side of the lens makes it so that they don't have to add extra space for those things. So they could make this lens as small as they possibly could. And you can see that when it comes to the weight of the lens. This is only 420 grams. That's not a lot. It's a very lightweight lens. So having this lens compared to the Sony A7IV, that's a really compact setup. So you can grab this, take it with you on a hike. You don't feel the weight of this lens like you can do compared to this one, the Sigma 24-70, which is almost twice as heavy as this Tamron lens is. Compared to the new 16-35 f4, this is an f2.8. So you get that shallow depth of field if you want that, but you can also use this in low light situations. Like we said, this is a wide angle zoom lens, so the focal length is from 17 up to 28, but this lens has an internal zoom. There's no barrel that is extending when you go from 17 to 28. So this lens is really optimized for gimbal work. The internal zoom makes it so there is no shift in center of gravity. So you don't have to calibrate or rebalance your gimbal if you go from 17 up to 28. And that's just great. This lens has a weather sealing gasket on it, so you can take this lens outside in harsher weather conditions. And when it comes to video, I was really surprised about the focus breathing on this lens. When I tried to zoom from one lens to another, you can see the example here, I didn't see that much. There is some focus breathing, but not as much as I was expecting. This lens does not have image stabilization inside of the lens, or vibration compensation like Tamron calls it, VC. This could be a downside if you want to vlog, holding the camera out, filming yourself while walking, for example. You might experience shaky image or shaky footage. Sony cameras nowadays, or most of the Sony cameras nowadays, they have image stabilization or IBIS inside of the camera, so that will help with shaky footage. So not having VC or vibration compensation inside of this lens might not be a big deal if you have a camera with IBIS. But if you have a camera without IBIS, having no image stabilization inside of the lens could be a big deal for you. One of the advantages pairing the 17 to 28mm Tamron lens with my Sony A7IV is that my Sony A7IV has a 33 megapixel sensor. That means that the 4K video coming out of this camera is an oversampled 7K image. That again means that you can crop into an APS-C mode and still have a 4.6K image coming out of a crop mode. Cropping into an APS-C mode means that you crop in 1.5 times. And with this lens going from 17 on a full frame up to 28 on a full frame, and you crop in at 28 by 1.5 times, you get a 17 to 46mm focal length on this lens. That's almost a 17 to 50mm with a high image quality. But then again, Sony has what's called a clear image zoom. That again means that when you have cropped in to a 48mm focal length by cropping in at an APS-C mode, you can now crop in by 1.5 times more by adding a clear image zoom. That means this Tamron lens paired up with my Sony A7IV, you have a focal length of 17 in full frame all the way up to 63mm cropped in with an APS-C and a clear image zoom. So it's a really versatile lens if you have the Sony A7IV. But I have to say that with the clear image zoom, you lose the eye and face detect autofocus. You have the eye and face detect autofocus in APS-C crop mode, but not in clear image zoom. But then again, the autofocusing system on these Sony cameras is really excellent, so you might not even notice it. Now, the image quality coming out of this lens, I think it's really up to par with a lot of higher end lenses. I think the clarity of the images is really good. Of course, this is an ultra wide angle zoom lens, so you will have some stuff at the outer parts of the image, but that's easily corrected in any kind of editing software. When it comes to clarity, I really think that this lens is up to par with a lot of other higher end lenses. So is this Tamron 17 to 28mm ultra wide angle zoom lens a sleeper lens? I believe it is. For $799 you get a really good performing lens, and even though it's not the same focal length as the Sony 16 to 35, with the Sony A7IV you have the crop option, you have the clear image zoom option, so you have the potential to go all the way from 17 to 64, I believe it was. So yeah, I think this is a sleeper lens when it comes to the price. It doesn't have the supreme quality, the supreme clarity that the G Master lens has. Of course it doesn't. It's not in the same league, but for $799, I believe you get a lot of good opportunities with this Tamron 17-28 lens. Anyway, that's it for me. Enjoying the view up here. Just want to show you the mountains. It's so beautiful right now. And with this wide angle zoom lens, I can really show you, I'm just holding the camera, I can show everything around me. So I think you really get a good quality lens with this Tamron lens. Anyway, that's it for me. That's it for this video. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, please hit that thumbs up button down below. Subscribe if you want to follow my channel and follow me and my videos. And yeah, maybe I will see you in another video.